It's war out there. There's a land war happening right now in America, and it's not between the builders. It's between your future home and the AI revolution. And if you're planning to buy, build, or invest in real estate in the next 5 years, you need to understand what's actually happening under the ground you're walking on. The land that you thought would become neighborhoods is disappearing into something completely different. And it's happening faster than anybody expected. Right now across the country, there are parcels of land that were zoned for housing 3 years ago, entitled for subdivisions, ready for homes, and they're not becoming homes anymore. They're becoming data centers. Not because builders don't want them, because builders can't afford them anymore. When a traditional home builder looks at a 50-acre parcel, they run the numbers based on lot yields. Maybe 100 lots at $75,000 per lot, that's $7.5 million in total land basis. They can make that work. But when Amazon or Microsoft or Google looks at that same parcel, they're not thinking about lots. They're thinking about power capacity and fiber access. And they're writing checks for $100 million, sometimes $300 million, sometimes even more. You can't compete with that math. Before you think this is just a Northern Virginia problem or something happening in other markets, let me bring this home. Atlanta is one of the fastest growing data center markets in the country right now. The same infrastructure that made us attractive for corporate relocations, the same highway access, the same power grid capacity, that's exactly what makes us attractive for data centers. And in some counties around Atlanta, data centers have already consumed 20 to 30% of available development land. That's not a projection, that's already happened. So what does this actually mean for you? Let's talk about what happens when land gets repriced out of housing feasibility. When a data center pays $100 million for a parcel, that sets a new comparable sale. Now, every landowner within 5 miles thinks their land is worth that much too. Even if it's not suitable for a data center, that's recency bias. Even if it was always meant for housing, the comps just reset, and suddenly builders who were penciling deals at $75,000 per lot are being quoted $200,000 per lot. The deal dies, the project gets shelves, and that land sits waiting for the next data center buyer who may never come. But here's where it gets interesting and much more problematic. This isn't just about land prices. It's about where capital is flowing. Institutional money, the kind that used to finance housing developments, is chasing AI infrastructure returns right now because data centers are seen as the picks and the shovels of the AI gold rush. You don't have to bet on which AI company wins. You just have to own the building that powers them all. That's a really attractive investment thesis. And it's pulling capital away from residential development at exactly the wrong time. Think about what builders are facing right now. Interest rates are still elevated compared to the 2010s. Material costs that are 30 to 40% higher than pre-pandemic. Labor that's more expensive and harder to find. And now land competition from companies that can outspend them 50 to 1. So what do builders do? They don't build entry-level homes anymore. They can't. The math doesn't work. Instead, they shift to higher price points, move-up buyers, move-up homes, luxury builds, anything where the margin can absorb that land cost. And the starter home, the workforce housing, the thing that the first-time home buyers desperately need, well, that just disappears first. Now let's talk about the political side of this because it matters more than you think. When a data center proposal comes to a county commission, here's what your local leaders see. Hundreds of millions in property tax revenue, construction jobs for 1, 2, maybe 3 years, ongoing tax base, economic development win. That's a really easy yes for a politician. But here's what the residents see. A giant windowless building, massive power consumption, minimal permanent jobs, maybe 20 or 30 people to manage the entire project, no retail ecosystem, no schools, no community, and most importantly, no housing. There's a quote from the Wall Street Journal article that I think captures this perfectly. It's pretty simple. A resident in one of these communities said they'd rather have homes than data. Makes perfect sense. It really encapsulates exactly what the issue is. We need homes and not data centers, and that's the tension. Because once that data center is built, the land is locked for 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. It's not converting back to housing. Even if the AI boom slows down, even if demand shifts, you've just permanently removed land from the housing supply. Let me give you a local example that hits close to home. North Metro Atlanta is seeing explosive growth in data centers development right now, and that's creating competition not just for land, but for infrastructure. Data centers need massive amounts of electricity. I'm talking about power loads that are equivalent to a small city, and they need it reliably 24/7 with redundancy. So utility companies are prioritizing grid upgrades to support these data centers, which means residential developments that need utility extensions, they're waiting longer. And guess who's paying for those utility upgrades? I assure you, it's not the data center. These costs get spread across the rate base, which means homeowners are subsidizing the infrastructure that's competing with their housing supply. Now, here's the second order effect that nobody's really talking about yet. What about the labor? Data centers require skilled construction labor, electricians, HVAC specialists, concrete crews, the same labor pool that builds homes. And data center projects pay premium wages because they're on tight timelines and have massive budgets. So if you're a skilled electrician, are you going to go work for a subdivision at standard rates, or are you going to work for a data center project that pays you 20% more? The answer is obvious, which means residential builders are facing labor shortages and wage inflation at the same exact time. And the cost gets passed through to home prices. And guess who pays the home prices? You, me, anyone buying a house. Let's talk about materials for a second, because this is subtle, but it is important. Data centers consume enormous amounts of copper, steel, electrical components, backup power systems. They're buying these materials in bulk at scale on long-term contracts. That creates supply pressure on the same materials that home builders need. And when supply gets tight, prices go up. So even if the builder finds the land they can afford, even if they get the labor, the materials are more expensive because the data centers are consuming the supply. It's a cascading effect. Now, I want to pause here and talk about something that I think is the most important part of this entire discussion. What we're seeing is what I call invisible zoning. Here's what I mean by that. Zoning laws say that you can build on a piece of land, residential, commercial, industrial, whatever. But zoning doesn't control capital allocation. And when capital flows overwhelmingly towards one use, it doesn't matter what the zoning says. The land effectively gets rezoned by the market. Even if a parcel is zoned for 200 homes, if a data center developer offers 10 times what a builder can pay, the land is now a data center site. The zoning didn't change, but the outcome did. And that's a structural shift that policy has not caught up with yet. So what does this mean for me and you and me, if you're trying to buy a home in North Metro Atlanta in the next few years? First, understand that supply constraints are going to persist longer than most people think. We're not just dealing with a temporary shortage. We're dealing with a fundamental relocation of land away from housing. That means inventory is going to stay tight for quite some time, and prices are going to stay elevated. Second, expect builders to keep shifting towards higher price points. If you're looking for a new construction under $400,000 in a desirable area, that's going to be a really hard find right now. Not because builders don't want to build them, because frankly, the land cost doesn't support it anymore. Third, this is going to push development further out. When land close in becomes too expensive, builders go further out, which means you're going to see more growth in the exurbs, longer commutes, more sprawl, and that creates its own set of problems around infrastructure and quality of life. Now, if you're an investor or somebody thinking about land, this gets really interesting because there's a strategic question here. Do builders start partnering with tech companies on mixed-use developments? Do they pivot to land banking, holding land until the data center wave passes? Or do they just sell the entitled land to tech buyers and get out of the development game altogether? I'm seeing all of these strategies play out right now, and I don't think we know yet which one is going to win. Let me talk about the long-term risk for a minute, because this is where it gets a little bit uncomfortable. What happens if AI demand slows down? What happens if we've overbuilt data centers and half of them are sitting underutilized for 10 years? That land is locked in. This is not converting back to housing. You can't just tear down a data center and build a subdivision. The infrastructure is wrong. The utilities are wrong. The whole site is wrong. So you'd have a stranded asset in markets that desperately need housing. And the housing shortage would still be there. That's not going anywhere. That's a real risk. And it's one that local governments aren't thinking about enough when they approve these projects long term. Now, here's the question I think we need to be asking as a community. Should housing be treated as a critical infrastructure? Should land for residential be protected the same way we protect water resources or transportation corridors? Because right now, we're treating housing as just another market outcome. And the market is saying data centers are more valuable than homes right now. But Is that the outcome we actually want as a society? Is that the outcome that creates stable, thriving communities? Frankly, I don't have the answer for that. But I think it's a conversation we need to be having at a county level, at a state level, and even a federal level. Because if we don't, we're going to wake up in 10 years and realize we've built an economy that runs on cloud computing but doesn't have anywhere for people to live. So here's what I want you to take away from this. This isn't about rates. This isn't about inventory. This is about a fundamental structure shift in how land is being allocated. And if it's happening right now in real time in a market you're trying to buy in or invest in, if you're a buyer, understand that supply constraints you're seeing aren't temporary. If you're an investor, understand that the dynamics of land value are changing in ways that don't follow historical patterns. And if you're just someone who cares about housing affordability and community development, pay attention to what local government is approving, because those decisions are shaping what communities look like 50 years from now. The land war is real, and right now, housing is losing, and it will continue to lose if we don't do anything. The question is whether we're okay with that, and that is a 100% guaranteed question I need you to answer. Comment below, subscribe, hit the like button. Thanks for watching.